How did Honda do in 2025? I have the full sales results that we're going to break down and discuss today. We're also going to talk about their performance division, Acura, and talk about the highs and lows of Acura as well. If you guys are excited for that, I appreciate the hitting of that like button. But before we jump over, just keep in mind, like, here is the total sheet. Thanks, Automotive News. They have tallied up all the manufacturers here, and the market was down 3.6% in quarter four. That's not good. That tells me that the market's really cooled off. EVs, we'll talk about, have really cooled off too. For most manufacturers, Tesla, Acura, Honda. There are others where EVs have just plummeted. Even like if you look at Lucid and Rivian, their sales are down too. All right. So anyways, EVs are not doing great, but that's besides the point. Like we have, and I'll have to do Volkswagen another video. Volkswagen's hurting here. Audi especially, a part of Volkswagen, right? Toyota, we did yesterday. If you missed yesterday's video, Toyota is just crushing it. All right. Subaru. Well, they're not doing so hot. Stellantis, out of nowhere, they still have a massive day supply, and you can pretty much put a price on a Jeep Wrangler, and you'll be able to get 10 grand off of MSRP. That's what I'm seeing. Nissan, I haven't looked at their numbers yet. They're not great, but fleet sales are diminishing for them. Same thing with Mazda, and Mazda I'll have to cover another video. Mazda is just plummeted. Mitsubishi plummeted. Okay, Koreans are just hanging in there, hanging tough, because they're at about neutral for the quarter. They're up 7.5% for 2025. By Honda, what happened in this last quarter? Well, I'm going to discuss why they're down about 10% on the quarter. They still ended up slightly positive on the year. Slightly positive, but I don't like where things are headed. All right, General Motors down 7% on the quarter. Cadillac taking a shellacking. BMW down on the quarter, but they still managed to beat out Lexus for the sales crown by 1,000 units. That is crazy. It is possible in 2026 that Toyota could take the sales crown without beating its all-time sales record. All right, I don't know if 370,000 units will be seen in 2026. That is extraordinarily lofty. All right, now that we got that aside, just painting the overall picture, let's get into Honda. Do they have some takeaways? Well, let's look at the overall sales here. 1.4 million units sold in 2025. It's best year since 2021, and a year-over-year increase of 0.5%. Now, they had, this is the biggest one. Well, there's a couple things here. The microchip shortage. This is affecting Honda worse than everyone else. Honda is very dependent on Nexperia, and Nexperia is a chip manufacturing company consisting of Chinese parts and Dutch parts, and they have been at odds with each other, either the two companies or the two ends of the company. All I know that is it's affecting Honda massively, not only in the United States, but they're having chip shortage issues over in China too, and their sales in China are not looking strong either. That is a bit worrisome that Honda is still more affected by chip shortages seemingly than any other manufacturer here in the United States. They have other market conditions that's affecting them, and we're going to talk about what those market conditions are. You know, Honda up 0.4%, Acura up 1%, but I'm going to explain why that, like, both of these numbers, you should not be like, it's not just neutral. It's like, oh, there's nothing positive or there's nothing negative here. Well, there's actually a lot of worry for me going into 2026, and I've been seeing these trends happen for Honda and Acura for the last 2 quarters, I guess you could say. However, for Acura, sales reached almost 12,000 units, marking the brand's best month since May, as it began to recover from inventory shortage affected key models throughout the year. All right. Well, I'm excited to dive into that because I got a lot of opinions. Despite Honda being about neutral, they had a record sales of light trucks. Light trucks is any crossover, any truck, anything that's not a sedan or coupe. Passport had a best year ever, 55,000 units, up 70% versus last year. With the Trail Sport accounting for 80% of the sales. The only other one that's not a Trail Sport is the RTL model, which is, you know, the entry-level model. They have 2 different Trail Sport grades for the Passport. Record electrified sales with a 3rd straight year of record hybrid sales for CR-V, Accord, and Civic, plus 40,000 sales in Prologue. Well, they can hang their hat on the Prologue. The Prologue is still not built by Honda. And the Prologue sales are completely in the gutter right now. And there are like I drove by my local Honda dealer on the 1st to bring in the new year. I drove around dealerships. If you missed that video, it was fascinating to see like Honda struggling with inventory still, but they weren't struggling with Prologue inventory. That's for sure. Record sales of CRV in general. Last year they sold 400,000 CRVs. But they did it again. And last year was the best year ever for the CRV. And then they broke that record again with the CRV. Now, 54% is from the hybrid trims. Keep in mind, you have things like its chief competitor, the RAV4 going fully hybrid. That's going to have an advantage for the majority of the buyers out there, I would say. Now, there might be some people out there that'll be like, I don't want a hybrid. Give me a CVT and a turbo, and they'll get worse fuel economy and worse responsiveness and X, Y, and Z. It's just not as nearly as good as experience, but you have some people that are like, I hate anything electrified. And so maybe a lot of those CRVs will be sold to fleet too. I'm not quite sure, but I don't think Honda actually sells fleet. So, and speaking of fleet, all right, Honda selling little to no fleet. Toyota sold 10 to 12% fleet last month. I reached out to Toyota. I'm like, hey, can you break down fleet per model? They're like, we don't break down fleet per model, which is unfortunate because they sold dubiously high levels of Tacomas last year. And I wonder how much of the Tacoma was and how much of the Camry and things like that were sold fleet to rental companies, to businesses, etc. They're saying that HRV and Pilot are limited by production constraints. Well, we'll see. I want to see what the sales were. Odyssey posted its best sales since 2019 with over 88,000 units. No, minivans are hot. Minivans are super hot. If we go back to the spreadsheet here, if we go back to Chrysler's up 29%. They only sell minivan. Toyota, the Sienna was up. They sold 100,000 Siennas. All right, Kia, I know the Carnival's up. I haven't broke down Kia's numbers yet, but I know the Carnival's up. The minivan market is red hot. And Honda is saying, hey, we had the best Odyssey year for the first time in like 6-7 years. That's amazing because Odyssey's old. Odyssey's still fantastic, and I love that it's old, but the styling is, well, it's getting there. It's getting very, very long in the tooth. But anyways, we'll talk about minivans more later on. Prelude on sale already. We'll talk about the small sales it's posted as well. And let's get into this. I'm not going to go over Acura highlights. I'd rather just get into the numbers at this point. Accord was up 5%. Now, keep what we have here is not quarterly. It's a month over month of December. So month of December 2025 versus 2024. Accord up 5% on the month, but down 7% on the year. The Accord has been a casualty to an extent, not necessarily a casualty, but it's been wounded by the reworkings of the Marysville auto plant to build EVs there. Okay, the 0 Series EVs, which is still, it might happen by the end of this year. We'll see. Civic down 2.5%. Not sure why. Now, tariffs could be playing a role. I doubt it. I mean, yes, we have some Civics. The Civic sedans, I think, are built up in Canada, for example. But so are CRVs, and CRVs are still selling well. Okay, but the Civic here down 1% on the year. What can I say about the Civic and the Accord? Well, I want to pull up Toyota sales here. So we have Corolla that posted 248,000 units. We go back to the Civic, 238,000. So the Civic lost to the Corolla by about 10,000 units. But how much of the Corolla, you could say is fleet? I don't know. All right. And then you look at the Camry, 316,000 whopping units, fully hybrid at this point. This is nuts. The Camry is now outselling the Accord more than 2-1. The Accord sold 150,000 units last year. The Camry sold 28,000 in December, and the Accord sold 15,000. But if you look at the total volume, 150,000 versus 316,000, the Accord is nowhere close to what the Camry's been able to steal with market share. It is very impressive what the Camry's done. The Civic, though, is an amazing vehicle. The Civic, in some ways, fights against the Camry, right? It's pretty spacious on the inside. So Civic is almost doing double duty here, fighting against the Corolla and the Camry. It's kind of an in-betweener segment. Okay, the Corolla feels much smaller than the Civic when you spend time in them. And let's see, like the Accord, yeah, they've given it a refresh for 2026, but it's really just like different wheels on the sport package and bigger screens, I guess you could say, on the entry models. But the refresh that the Accord needed to be need to be more successful. All right, you might be saying, Kirk, maybe there's just not any Accords out there in volume. Well, let's see here in my area. There are 800 Accords and 400 Accord hybrids. Again, I would only personally drive the Accord hybrid. I really don't enjoy the CVT turbo experience, whether it's a CRV, whether it's an Acura, whether it's an Accord. Okay, the hybrids are so superior in NVH, in efficiency, in power, okay, acceleration, etc. So yeah, Accord hybrid here. There's no shortage of inventory on these things. So anyways, let's get back to the sales here. Civic doing good. I mean, these sales are very respectable, despite it losing to the Corolla by 10,000 units. Prelude, they've sold 204 Preludes this year, or should I say the year of 2025. Well, I don't know what else to say. I haven't driven it yet. The media drive is in 2 weeks. So hopefully I can share those impressions with you. I won't be driving it. It's on during my birthday, and I'd rather stay at home than drive the new Prelude. Sorry, Honda. You guys know, Honda already knows that I'd rather stay home than leave my family to go drive a Prelude across the country. All right. So anyways, I will still have Prelude coverage, so stay tuned for that. All right. Via one of my good friends and colleagues. All right. CRV. This, guys, is very impressive. Just like I mentioned how the RAV4 yesterday, and I have to bring up Toyota. Toyota's a chief rival to Honda. And the RAV4 sold 4,000 more units than it did the year before, which it brought it to 479,000 units. So we go back to Honda here. The CRV up very small in terms of percentage-wise, like the RAV4. The RAV4 was up 0.9% overall, and the CRV 0.6% overall. However, both the CRV and the RAV4 posted an all-time sales record for that individual model. Very impressive. Now, like the RAV4 having a dip of 5% dip here, Honda had a 10% month-over-month dip in the month of December for the CRV. It could be the microchip shortage. That's what I'm going to say. But let's see. Is there a shortage? Let me see if there's a shortage in my area of CRVs. Okay. And the answer is no. Look how many CRV hybrids there. There's 647 standard CRVs and 1,000 CRV hybrids. So there's no shortage of volume on CRV hybrids or CRVs. All right. There's just a ton out there. This is a good buy. 34 grand. If you can get $2,000 discount on the front wheel drive CRV Sport, that's a really good buy. I really appreciate the CRV hybrid. It's a fantastic vehicle, and it is a smoother and quieter. Still, it's smoother and quieter than the new RAV4. Okay, so it is I'd say slightly more premium than the RAV4, just slightly. But it also costs on average more relative to the trim, relative to the equipment you're getting. So I don't know why it's down. It could be down due to, and we can get into some of like these, what Honda said a second ago at the beginning. All right. What did they say? Changes in market conditions. Okay. That's just an open-ended book. But when we see its best-selling model just tank at the end of the month and there's no shortage of availability, that's telling me a changing in market conditions, a changer in buyer sentiment. Vehicles are very expensive still. Interest rates are still high. Insurance rates aren't getting any cheaper. This is all keeping people away from the new car market. All right. And the widening gap of people who can afford and can't afford is growing by the day. If your best-selling car takes a dip like this, you might say, hey, Kirk, the RAV4 took a dip. What's going on there? The RAV4 took a dip because, in theory, they're changing over from model one generation to the next. There's still a good availability of the RAV4 in my area, but maybe people are waiting for the new generation, right? So I have more excuses for the RAV4 to be down for the month of December than I do for the CRV. All right, I should be getting the CRV in like 15 minutes, the new Trail Sport trim. So stay tuned for my full review, driving impressions, and grade of the new CRV. I cannot wait. HRV. This vehicle is one hybrid short from crushing it. Now, I'm not sold on the looks, like I'm not sold on the looks of the Accord, for example, but the HRV down 1.5% on the year, 8.5% on the month. Okay, again, back to availability. What is HRV available? 618 in my area. All right, you're seeing price drops, $2,000 price drops on these things. It's a nice car. It's not the problem with the HRV. It's fuel economy, and a hybrid would fix that. The fuel economy in the HRV is really disappointing for its class. It handles well. It's slow as all. It's got no get up and go on this thing, but the interior is nice, has good controls, it handles well. A hybrid would fix its doggedness, and a hybrid would fix its fuel economy. And still, we have no hybrids coming out of that factory down in Mexico where this is built at the Celaya plant. It's just unfortunate. But sales being down here, it's telling me it's not a volume issue when we're seeing discounts. It's a demand issue. All right. Sorry, that's a Toyota for the HRV. HRV down on the year. Now, could it be a drop in, could you say, production volume overall in favor of the ADX that's also built down there? Possibly. We'll get to the ADX here in a little bit and revisit the HRV, but HRV is one hybrid powertrain short from being possibly segment leader, even over the Corolla Cross. Like the HRV is more roomy than the Corolla Cross. All right, Honda Odyssey. Wow. Okay. It's up 10.5% on the year, but it had a terrible month of December. You got to keep in mind the large platform vehicles were affected the most from this Nexperia chip shortage, chip dispute going on. So the Pilot's going to be down massive. Prologue's another. We'll get there. Ridgeline down. Now, I still saw a few Pilots. I saw more Ridgelines at my dealer than I saw Pilots, and I don't remember seeing that many Odysseys either. So that's where Honda's really suffering in terms of availability, I would say, is their large platform. Look, only 278 Odysseys within my area, only 193 Passports. Passports is a double whammy. You know, their sales, Honda would rather build as many Passports as they can because they know the demand is really high on that fresh new design. Okay, so they're going to say, okay, we only have so many chips. Let's put it into the car to build as many desirable cars as possible that we have right now, and that's the Passport. So the Passport doesn't have that much availability, but they're also selling at a high clip. If we go back to the sales here, the Passport up 40%. They have no issue trying to crank out as many Passports as possible. They don't have to incentivize them. The dealers can probably sell them for MSRP or close to thereof. The Odyssey, the Passport, the Ridgeline, the Pilot, they are all going to be affected by this chip shortage, and I don't know when this chip shortage is going to stop affecting Honda. It could be a lingering issue until they get another supplier, which is pretty worrisome because it doesn't seem like anyone else is having issues with this chip supply thing that I'm aware of. I could be wrong. I don't follow all the brands as closely as I follow Honda, for example. It's not a good thing for Honda's large platform vehicles. There's not a lot to take away from their large platform other than no microchips. And like the HRV's major problem, there's no hybrid. You know, the Civic does have good hybrid availability. Again, over 30% of the Civics are hybrid. And if we look down here, we see, almost a 300% increase in hybrids for the Civic this year because, well, they weren't on sale for the entirety of last year. But look, Civic hybrid up 14% in the month of December, despite the Civic actually being down 3%. The Civic hybrid is continuing to grow. All right. Civic hybrid is fantastic. One of my favorite vehicles, under $30,000. All right. CRV hybrid was down on the month, but up on the year. All right, and Civic, or say the Accord, we've already talked about the Accord's issues. It's not just the chip shortage issue. Yes, that's the major thing, but also a lack of a hybrid powertrain is going to continue. It's going to continue to hurt Honda's large platform significantly. They are working on a V6 hybrid, an all-new V6, an all-new V6 hybrid. potentially quite a bit different than there are people in my yard. Hold on. Sorry, it's my water guys. They're fixing the reverse osmosis. I'm low on calcite, and they're going to be fixing that anyway. Sorry, that's what's going on. That's why I'm here hearing things. The V6 hybrid, it's going to do wonders for them when it gets here. It's just unfortunate that they're going to be giving up market share or not even have a snowball's chance because they have no hybrid large platform. So you look at Hyundai and Kia, and they have an all-new hybrid system becoming on the Telluride and the Palisade. Fantastic. And then it's going to be copy and paste to all the other models with that new 2-motor hybrid setup, potentially tri-motor with all-wheel drive on something like the new Tucson coming out next year. And then you have Toyota's got hybrids down pat. So yeah, and then Nissan one day will have hybrids. I swear, it just feels like forever. We need V6 hybrids for Honda as of 3 years ago. It hurts. It hurts me because I know Honda could be benefiting from it on a massive scale. Let's get into Acura. Acura also doesn't have any hybrids. That's hurting them. And I didn't talk about the Prologue. So let's backtrack. I swear, I'm all over the place. All right, the Prologue up 19% on the year. Look at this volume. They sold 39,000 of these things. They've been losing money on them. And now that they don't have to sell them, they're not penalized for not having EVs because, well, the current government said, hey, you don't need to have EVs. You don't need to have, and there's no more EV tax credit. So you don't need to push these things. And Honda's like, oh, really? Okay. All right. Down 88%. Now, could it be something like a switch over from 25 to 26 model year? Possibly, but I don't think Honda cares to sell that many Prologues, mainly because they're losing so much money on selling those things out the door. And that's why the ZDX was canceled. The ZDX is canceled. The Prologue, it's only a matter of time before it's canceled, in my opinion. And maybe that happens when Honda has their own EV 0 Series, but it just is unnecessary for Honda to have this vehicle built by General Motors at this point. The relationship with General Motors has fallen apart probably completely at this point. I don't think they're doing anything together anymore. Maybe some fuel cell stuff. Actually, I don't think so. I think they've completely severed their ties with General Motors, which I think is a good thing, personally. Okay. And the Prologue, it's a beautiful EV. Honda did a great job with the design, but it's not Honda. It doesn't feel like a Honda. It just kind of looks like a Honda. It's beautiful, but it's not like a class-leading EV in any regard. Okay, what else? Let's move on to the Acura. Integra. Well, the Honda Civic was down 2%. The Integra down 12%. But you got to keep in mind, the Integra is going to suffer like the Accord has suffered. Both the Integra and the Accord are built in Marysville, Ohio. And so was the TLX. The TLX has been discontinued, so they're only making 2 cars in Marysville. Yes, they have the engine plant relatively close to Marysville where they build engines, and they will be building their mega casting casings for the batteries that I toured almost a year ago exactly. There is still no hybrid for the Integra, which is unfortunate because the hybrid Civic is superior in powertrain. There's no question in it. It's superior in powertrain to the CVT Turbo and the Integra, which is the base powertrain in the Integra. There's no question in it. I think 99% of you guys would agree that the Integra would be doing better if it had the Civic's hybrid powertrain, but it doesn't. And that is not good. It's hurting the Integra, in my opinion. Integra down 17% on the year, 12% on the month. It's one, like the HRV, it's one powertrain away, one hybrid powertrain away from being just a really easy to recommend vehicle. Really easy to recommend vehicle. It's just not there. It still handles well. It brakes well. It has a great interior, the Integra. I prefer the manual options, whether it's the Type S or the A-Spec Advance. But yeah, the manual is the only way I'd be buying an Integra. But that's me. That's not the masses. The masses are buying the CVT. But I'm telling you, if it had a hybrid, you would have even some manual buyers being like, shoot, I'll just go for the hybrid. Acura ADX. This vehicle I have my beef with. And the issue, well, let's not skip over the TLX. Let's do it some homage here. The TLX, going back to the TL, the TSX, it's been around for a while, since the early 2000s, maybe. I have very fond memories of the original TL Type S, and I have fond memories of the current TLX Type S. It was my first press event. I drove on Laguna Seca. It was like this amazing culmination of my hopes and dreams coming together, of being what I am, a YouTuber, journalist sort of thing, but also driving on Laguna Seca, which is one of my favorite race courses. And I got to do that, two birds with one stone. Acura, the TLX, I'm always going to be super grateful for Acura and the TLX for providing that amazing experience for me. And I also met so many people. Forrest, from, he's got his shorts. He's like, no one's better at shorts than Forrest. He wasn't doing shorts, I don't really think, that much at the time during that TLX event, but he's blown up. He's taken over the automotive shorts world. Okay. I met Sophie and Bay at that TLX auto event. Okay. As well as so many other friends that I still have to this day. What an amazing experience. All right. Acura ADX, man, though, this is just like the HRV. It's one powertrain short from being just a smash hit grand slam home run. ADX looks cool. It's massive. I saw one the other day. I'm like, oh, look, there's the new MDX. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Then I saw it from a different angle. I'm like, oh, that's an ADX. ADX is huge. It's a huge subcompact crossover. The styling's amazing, though. It looks awesome. All right. Yes, it's a fancier HRV, but the interior is really nice. It's really smooth. Like, the luxury on it is great. The problem I have with the ADX is that the CVT turbo is just so uninspiring. It's so slow and it's very thirsty. Fuel economy is poor on the ADX, and the hybrid would fix all that. Like, it's not rocket science, but Honda's just so slow. It hurts me on the inside that Honda's so slow to roll out hybrids in Acura and inside of their own Honda lineup. There's a large platform or inside the HRV, etc. All right. But the ADX, precision crafted performance and the ADX don't go together. The thing is slow. All right. It handles well, it brakes well, it's smooth, it's quiet, it's this and that, but it's not performance. No, it's not. The engine is anything but performance. Okay, so anyways, I can dog on the ADX all day long, but without the ADX, and it's being hit by tariffs, you got to keep in mind, it's coming in from Mexico like the HRV, but without the ADX, Acura division total, Acura is only up 1%, which is 1,000 units. Without the ADX, Acura would be down 20,000 units or 19,000 units. Like, without the ADX, Acura would be floundering. Acura absolutely needed this vehicle in its current moment. It needed it so badly because it's traditional cars, the MDX and RDX, it's traditional hot selling cars, at least for the past 10, 15, 20 years. Okay. Not going back to the 90s and the 80s, but since the 2000s, the MDX and the RDX have sold boatloads for Acura. And what's sad about the MDX was the luxury three-row leader for so long, for a couple decades. It kind of did three-row crossover luxury without much competition. You kind of had the Audi Q7, but look what happened. Okay, their sales are down to 41,000 units. It's down 17% on the year. It's even worse on the month. You might be saying, Kirk, chip shortage. I get it, but there's other things going on too. It was down way before the chip shortage. So it's down 21% on the month. So it's at 41,000 units. Then we look at something like, let's go to the Lexus TX. Lexus TX not only has beat it this year, the MDX, it has surpassed last year's sales total where the MDX sold 50,000 units. MDX sold 50,000 in 2024 and only 41,000 in 2025. And then you have this TX, which is just growing at a massive rate. Massive rate. Sold 6,900 units in the month of December, where the MDX sold less than 4,000. It's unfortunate. Now, the MDX also just got a refresh, new tech on the inside, slightly different styling. I think the styling actually took a step back, but that's just me personally, versus a pre-refresh. And the MDX is just, it's in a tough spot. There's no hybrid. Yes, the Type S is fantastic, but as much as I love a V6, I don't think the MDX is very, it's like they tried too hard to make it sporty, and it still doesn't feel that sporty when you drive it. And it doesn't feel that solid like a luxury car either. All right. I have the CX-90 outside. I'd take a CX-90 over an MDX, that does a luxury a little bit better and feels better built. The CX-90 is built in Japan. Tolerances are super tight on that car. And the rear wheel drive bias is really nice on CX-90. So it's like the MDX has kind of lost its luster. Not kind of, it has lost its luster, and it's really heartbreaking. The Type S was one of the best things to ever happen to the MDX. It's just unfortunate because I feel like as a precision crafted performance brand, that Type S engine, that 3-liter turbo, should be the base engine, okay, at 355 horsepower. That should be the base engine. You shouldn't be sharing a precision crafted performance MDX base engine with an Odyssey. Well, maybe that's props to the Odyssey. The Odyssey is out of this world. The Odyssey, I've said since the 2025 refresh of the Odyssey is a better luxury vehicle than any Acura is. It's quieter, smoother, it still handles great. It's incredible. The Odyssey is a luxury vehicle. It's so good, especially in the elite trim. The NVH is just incredible on the Odyssey. And I don't think it's matched by the MDX. Now, the Type S is different. Type S is different. The Type S, I got the massaging seats on there, etc. But like I said, the MDX base engine should be either the 2-liter turbo from the Type S Integra, should be the 2-liter turbo from the Type S Integra, or the V6 3-liter turbo that we see on the TLX Type S and MDX. So what would lead? Well, you just find a way to electrify. Acura at one point in time had sport hybrid MDX. That thing was a beast. Cool torque vectoring, dual motor all-wheel drive. I think it was actually, I'm trying to think of if it had maybe a tri-motor setup. I'm trying to think. I think it had a true automatic transmission with torque vectoring in the rear wheels to give it that super handling all-wheel drive. Like, it was really ahead of its time, the MDX Sport Hybrid and the RLX Sport Hybrids. But unfortunately, those weren't that successful, and now here we are in a market that's starving for hybrids and clamoring for hybrids. Acura is caught with nothing to offer, and the MDX is just, the Type S engine should be the base. All right, that's the thing. Now that the TLX Type S is gone, they're only making that V6 turbo for one model, and that's the MDX Type S. Like, find ways to put that Type S engine in as many cars as you can. Throw it in a Passport, throw it in an Odyssey, throw it in a Pilot, give them like HPD versions of those cars. Like, we need a reason for Honda to stuff that 3-liter turbo into more vehicles. And you guys might be saying, hey, it hasn't proven to be reliable. It's XYZ. This is Honda. They do engines better than, well, I'm not saying better than anyone, but as good as anyone, and sometimes better than a lot of its rivals. And it's just, I feel like Honda's best powertrains and are just kept from the majority of their models. And it's just unfortunate to have a lack of variety in Honda and Acura. All right. And that could be the reason why they're struggling so much, especially in Acura. Oh, it's tough. All right. I haven't even gotten to the RDX. Let's move on from the MDX. But RDX, minus 26% on the month, minus 26% on the year. It sold 31,000 units. We look at its chief rival, something like the NX, sold 76,000 units versus the RDX 31,000. It's just not good. The RDX is really long in the tooth right now. It never got the Type S it deserved. It's never got a hybrid like its rivals have. RDX looks cool. It handles well. It's an okay vehicle, but it still has a touchpad. And the RDX, I feel, here's my theory with the RDX. I think Acura and Honda, because Honda controls everything in Acura, but I think it was Honda's and Acura's vision to have the RDX replaced entirely by the new RSX. And I know this is just me, I'm making things up, but just follow my story. The RDX, since it never got a Type S, it was going to be replaced by the RSX. The RSX was supposed to be called the RDX, fully electric RDX. Okay. But they saw where the market is, changing market conditions, saw where the market was headed, and they're like, oh crap, we can't get rid of the RDX. It's too important as an internal combustion. And we know that there's a lack of demand after seeing how much money they were losing on the ZDX. They're like, we can't just put all our eggs in the midsize / subcompact crossover segment here on an EV. Okay, so they renamed it the RSX and they decided to keep the RDX around. And when will a new RDX come about? I have no idea. I have no clue. And it's really disheartening. I think Acura is just going to be riding the coattails of the ADX as long as it can because, well, it's cheap to make despite tariffs. The profit margins on it got to be huge. Made in Mexico. All right. RDX and MDX, their two traditional volume sellers, are bleeding out. TLX, well, it's up on the year. But like this sales volume is going to be completely gone next year. 8,000 units gone. 12,000 units gone from the ZDX. Okay, there's no way the MDX, RDX, ADX, and Integra can make up for the 20,000 missing units that they're going to have right off the bat due to discontinuation of the ZDX and TLX. Now, it's not just volume that's important. I get it. All right. The ZDX, though, was losing the monies, yes, and the Prologue is and was too. So the ZDX completely gone, and Acura dealers are like, Acura's like, gosh, thankfully, due to the new legislation, we don't need to keep selling this thing in our brand because it's costing us an arm and a leg. Okay. To sell, incentivizing 10, 15, 20,000. Leasing a ZDX was cheaper than like an ADX or an Integra. Like it was just absurd due to the amount of money on incentives. So now that vehicle's gone. So you have 20,000 units between the TLX and the ZDX completely gone next year from Acura. So Acura will sell something like 113,000 units next year, assuming everything else remains the same. Now, they could have a rebound in things like the MDX and RDX, but how are they going to do that? There's nothing fresh about those vehicles, really. Okay, there's no hybrids coming. Like Honda's going to be fine. They'll get their chips back, and then eventually come out with hybrids on the Honda end that will be shared with the Acura end. But like, what made the Acura hybrid so special a decade ago was its true torque vector and its unique, sporty, fun to drive hybrids. Their new hybrids aren't going to be any different for Acura than the Honda end. Zero difference. Anyways, there will be no difference between, as far as until I'm proven wrong, between Acura hybrids and Honda hybrids. There's just too much money to invest into different powertrains. If you look at Toyota and Lexus, there are very few differences even there between their hybrid powertrains. The 500H, there's only one Toyota, the Toyota Crown Platinum, that has that powertrain, okay, which is priced like a Lexus. The TX plug-in hybrid, a unicorn plug-in hybrid that's shared with a Century that costs a $200,000 SUV. Toyota even shares their plug-in hybrids. And Acura, Honda, no plug-in hybrids. They had the Clarity for years. The Clarity was kind of like this test bed vehicle for hybrid, plug-in hybrid fuel cell. It's like, what does Honda have coming that's really going to help them move the needle? V6 hybrid's great. That's going to help them massively, but that's 2 years down the road, maybe longer. But I'm more concerned about Acura here with seeing their sales. Guys, they're up 1%. But like I said, next year, they're not going to be able to make up the 20,000 units from the TLX and the ZDX leaving. It's impossible unless they have some sort of miraculous rebound with the MDX and RDX. And the Integra is not looking great, and that's a big volume seller for them too. Look, the Integra outsold the ADX by like 45 units. That's crazy. But look, that's because the Integra was on sale the entirety of this year. If you look at the Integra, it sold 24,000 units last year, still up beating the ADX. But the ADX, if they continue to sell about 2,500 to 3,000 units per month, they're going to sell over 30,000 units next year. And it could beat out the RDX. Could beat out the RDX. I don't know. Thank you guys for watching this. Before editing, this has come out to be about 45 minutes of me venting about Honda and Acura. Honda, I adore the brand. I always have. It's like a sports team, man. Your sports team you live and you die by, but you will be the first to criticize your sports team for not getting the job done properly. And that's me sitting here as a childhood fan to my adult years of Honda, seeing them fumble the ball and have bad coaching. And while you see other businesses, other companies out there doing great. Now, to be fair to Honda, I need to take a step back and stop comparing them so much to Toyota. That'd be like in college football. You're just comparing your crappy football team to what Indiana's done, Oregon, Texas Tech, right? These quick turnaround teams that have great coaching and lots of money. Honda, I don't know what their coaching's like. It doesn't seem like, it seems like they've had the same coach for about 40 years and is not taking any chances. A Prelude is not a chance. EVs was taking a chance. That's like saying, hey, we put all of our money into this 5-star quarterback. It didn't pan out. And now we're caught red-handed. Or we caught with our pants down and we got to like pivot hard into a whole different strategy. Okay, that's kind of what's happened with their EVs. They were planning on building a huge mega hub of EVs up in Canada, and Trump's like, "Well, you got to build cars here, otherwise they'll be tariffed." They're like, "Shh." They've been caught on the wrong side of investment and wrong side of anticipating the market here for the last several years. And so Honda, man, it's tough. I want them to do well is better than anyone. All right, I'm a weirdo. I want my childhood dreams of these cars to come back and to be successful, but I just have so many questions. But again, to be fair to Honda, I got to keep bringing this up. Honda's not the only one struggling right now. Again, let's go back. And you might be saying, Kirk, Honda's not struggling at all. I can see through the numbers, okay? BMW down on the quarter. Where's the market headed? General Motors down 7%. They're doing worse than Honda Acura. Okay, well, yeah, sort of. Minus 10% for Honda, right? Right. This is quarter. You got to keep in mind this is quarter and not just the month. All right, so it's not just Honda here. We see a lot of companies struggling. Mazda, massive struggle. Mitsubishi, well, when haven't they been struggling the last 30 years? All right, Nissan not doing super hot, but seemingly actually a little bit better than Honda in this past quarter. Even, Stellantis, well, they're a hot mess express, but they somehow pulled out a positive this past quarter. I think they've had 2 straight quarters of positivity. Subaru's even down, right? Subaru's even down. Volkswagen's the suffering the most. All right. So to see Honda down, well, that's just kind of where the current market is. Yes, they're struggling with their own issues. All these companies are struggling with their own issues. Toyota even has its own issues, but their issues are on a tiny, tiny scale compared to everyone else because they're just printing money, printing money. So anyways, I got to shut it down. Thank you guys for watching. Got the little Grom out there on this side. Okay, got the little Moto Compacto here. I forgot where I was, but the water's fixed in my house, so that's great news. The market in 2026, almost everyone, even Hyundai came out recently. The CEO of Hyundai said, hey, 26 is going to be a tough year. So Honda, overall, a pretty solid year. Solid is the best way to put it. But they have the work cut out for them, just like all the other manufacturers, pretty much besides Toyota at this point. Thank you guys. Have a great day and peace.